Hello and welcome to the LCI podcast. This is episode some number because it's the off season, so I don't know. How's it going, Connor?
It goes well. I am drifting aimlessly through the incredibly tumultuous NFL offseason, but I am well in general for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, to say it's been tumultuous is a understatement for sure. It started off with some rumors and then like half the league, I feel like, has moved. Or at least half the league's superstars have like moved somewhere else. It's quite
Well,
crazy.
certainly we knew it was going to be a lot of um, there was going to be a lot of change in terms of quarterbacks, but it's so funny if you go back and you uh, look at those kind of pre-off-season articles, off-season preview and like blah blah blah. You know, the two that are at the top of the list for like, well, these ones are going to move were Aaron Rodgers and uh oh man, um
Jimmy Garoppolo?
Jimmy G, yeah.
Yeah.
And here we are. Um Jimmy G has not moved, Aaron Rodgers has not moved, and yet somehow another quarter of the league has a new starting quarterback. And we haven't had the draft yet. It's
No, no, no.
it's wild. I mean, I don't expect anyone to come away from the draft with a new starter in place, except maybe Atlanta. But um, it's pretty. It's been pretty insane. I can't think of an off season quite like it.
I had just forgotten there for a minute that Matt Ryan was also traded, which
Yeah, yeah. Matt Right, Marcus Mariota is right now slotted in um, to be the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. Like it's there's been so many changes that it's hard to keep track of them all. And there is at least one, and presumably two, by definition, like have to happen. Um, the Baker situation is
yeah.
there's no obvious spot for him except for maybe Seattle, and I don't know why Seattle would um, uh, trade any assets for him, but like they the Browns literally can't afford to have Baker Mayfield on their roster.
Yeah.
Um, so there's going to be at least one more coming. Um, you know, remember Carson Wentz got traded weeks ago?
Yep.
Bonkers stuff. Bonkers.
Yeah, and there's some rumors coming in today that the Jets reached out to see if DK Metcalf was available. So
Oh yeah, yeah. We're not even talking. We haven't even moved on to the non-quarterback situation of it all. It's
yeah, had
uh,
you told me that Adams was the one leaving um Green Bay and not Aaron, I would have been completely ludicrous to me that Rodgers would decide to stay on a team that literally lost its only offensive weapon that he keeps
if
complaining he doesn't have.
if you were to do a top five list of the biggest moves of the offseason so far, right? You've got Russell Wilson, which shout out to me for not bringing that up until now. You'd have the Russell Wilson trade. Um, you would have the Deshaun Watson trade. You
Oh
would
yeah.
have um, you would have, like you said, the Adams trade. Um, and then I guess at that point you'd have to say it's the Tyreek Hill trade, which like
Yeah.
any other offseason, the best offense in the NFL trading like their 28-year-old game-changing game-changing uh most valuable offensive weapon other than the best quarterback in football, because he won a new contract after their divisional rival just gave one to another player, would be the craziest move of the offseason.
Yeah, I remember what's it, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, that Hopkins was traded one for one for Johnson, and everyone was losing their minds for a week. We're both fantasy footballer fans, and every
Hmm.
episode for like 2 weeks, they were just celebrate in that. Like, that seems like a nothing trade now.
It truly does. Hey, remember Khalil Mack? He
Mm.
got traded to the Chargers. What in
Oh,
the
right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You genuinely forgot about that because it's like the 10th biggest thing that happened. But, like, that's a huge deal. That dude fetched 2 first-round picks, like, what, 3 seasons ago? 4 seasons ago now?
Yeah, something like
Um,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So and obviously the Tom Brady saga, chef's kiss, love it. Um, what an egomaniac. 6 weeks at home with the kids, and he's like, "Ah, I gotta get back out there, man."
Yeah, and I think Christian Kirk setting the wide receiver market has been fascinating as well.
Oh, yeah, the Jaguars just going buck wild.
Money to spend, I guess.
That's certainly true. They had it, they might as well spend it, but it's funny, I've heard a lot of discussion about, like, what are the kinds of free agent contracts that look good in a few years? And, really, if you're looking at bringing players on board through free agency, the team you should model is the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills built their team as it pertains to free agency anyways, through those like middle of the pack 3-year deals that are
Mm.
like top of the bell curve for just like solid guys. And then they use their draft picks to take swings on talent. Obviously, they gave Von Miller a huge contract this offseason, just
Oh
betraying
yeah.
exactly what I just said. But if you're Jacksonville, yeah, you have money to burn, um, and you can't complain about the Scherf contract. But yeah, I what is that Zay Jones deal? I don't know. It's insane.
I mean, they got to get talent for Trevor Lawrence, right? So you get some guys who are always behind better players, and maybe they'll be good.
Oh, sure, absolutely. It's I don't hate it in principle, I suppose. It's more that um so you let DJ Chark walk out the door, who is a like an outside receiver, and then you bring in Zay Jones to replace him for less guaranteed money. Or sorry, for more guaranteed money over 2 years. DJ
Mm.
Chark I think got 1 year 8 partially guaranteed and Zay Jones got 2 years 10, I think. At any rate, the point of the story is um there were other guys you could play. And Laviska Shenault is a slot receiver. So he spent all this money on Christian Kirk. Now what are you supposed to do with Laviska Shenault?
I don't know, make him a running back.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then, like, of course, Allen Robinson got traded too. That was the thing that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because also the Rams traded Bobby Trees.
Yeah. Where did he end up? I completely forgot.
Was it the Jets? Robert Woods. Let's just Google it right here.
Titans?
Titans. Yeah.
Titans, yeah.
Because the Titans cut Julio Jones, who is still looking for a job, I think.
Yep, haven't heard anything there, so
Yeah. Have to imagine he winds up in Indy for a reunion tour if he
yeah.
can't get money from
That'd
anyone,
be
which
that'd be great, I think.
it would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite the change, and then like it's really hard to even think about how much this is going to change like the landscape. I mean, obviously the AFC West is like a complete gong show of like, literally any of those teams could be the top. I mean, I feel like the
Mhm.
Raiders can't win the division, but I feel like they're a solid playoff team.
I just can't buy into Derek Carr. I
Mm.
understand that he's very good. I understand that he was Devontae Adams' college quarterback, and that when they were in college together, they made many points together. But I still just can't quite buy in. The other thing is that if you hear him in press conferences, he talks about his time in Denver as being like formative, and he's like, I didn't know people, now I know people, and you know, but it wasn't that long ago that he totally bailed on Indy. So like, if Las Vegas fans want to get excited about the Josh McDaniels experience, like all the more power to them. I'm going to try to keep an open mind, but I'm also not intimidated by the fact that Josh McDaniels is in the same division as my team. Um, but that said, it doesn't matter. The Raiders could be the worst team in the NFL, and it's like, oh yeah, that just leaves us with the Chiefs and the Chargers. Like it's truly bonkers. Thank God there's 3 wild card spots, is all I have to say about
Oh yeah.
my team. But what about your team? Are you hoping they trade for Baker Mayfield? Are you hoping they draft Malik Willis at 9? What are you hoping for in the post Russell Wilson era?
Well, I just listened to the footballers talk about quarterbacks in this year's draft, and they are
Hmm.
all really low on pretty much all of them.
Hmm.
And it's kind of hard to imagine drafting a quarterback to replace Wilson. So, if they trade for Baker, I feel like that's kind of fine. Um,
Yep.
I think there's a lot of problems on Seattle that um, not only did Wilson cover up, but also losing guys like Bobby Wagner for literally nothing um,
Yeah.
in their defense. So their defense last year was already terrible. So losing probably one of the best linebackers of all time,
Mm.
um, like I can't imagine this team is even like I don't. They have to be last in the division for sure. Like it's I don't know. It's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be really bad.
Yeah, like you can talk yourself into like, Baker and candidly, like going into this offseason as a Broncos fan, you're thinking to yourself, you're like I was preparing myself for the like, oh, if we can walk away with like maybe we can get Marcus Mariota. I wouldn't be too sad if we got Marcus Mariota. Like I was moving fairly far down the options list just to mentally prepare myself for disappointment.
Mhm.
Um, Baker's not bad. He's got, a penchant for boneheaded throws and kind of slinging it, but um yeah, like last year, we were ready to anoint that guy the next face of the end, like or one of the next faces of the NFL, and it's crazy. It's crazy how far his stock has fallen. There's there's um there's a lot of talk that like if you're San Francisco or Cleveland at this point, you do the Minnesota Vikings thing. So there was that year where the Vikings had Teddy Bridgewater and sorry, there was the year.
Bradford?
Yes, the Sam Bradford, the year they traded for Sam Bradford, um, because Bradford was on the Eagles. The Eagles had like they like signed 3 quarterbacks. They
Yeah,
had
yeah.
they had they gave an extension to Bradford, and then they drafted Wentz, and then they gave another extension to Chase Daniel, and everyone was like, well, why are you investing resources into 3 quarterbacks? And then the Eagles just like sat around waiting in training camp, and Teddy Bridgewater tore his ACL, and suddenly there's a market for quarterbacks when there wasn't one before. The problem is there's 2 of them. There's like both Cleveland and San Francisco have guys that are ready to be shipped out at a moment's notice. So you know, if some team has an injury or whatever, um, suddenly there's a market for quarterbacks. There is competition there. So
Mhm.
it might it if you're Seattle, you could get Baker Mayfield, a guy who you don't need to give a new contract to, who is young and talented and pissed off, for
Yeah,
probably pretty cheap at this point, just because Cleveland, like I said, needs to get him off their books because they
yeah,
gave an insane contract to a rapist. But
yeah.
it is like you say. I didn't fully appreciate how grim this defensive depth chart is for the Seahawks. Like you can talk yourself into like Baker Mayfield and Lockett and Metcalf and Fant and oh yeah, and maybe the offensive line gets their mojo back, but like
Mhm.
God, look at these linebackers. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
it's
buddy. That's bad.
it was bad, and then they were in games because they have a Hall of Fame quarterback keeping them in it. So
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Baker will be fine. I mean, 3 years ago he set a rookie record for touchdowns, and then took a Left for Dead franchise to the playoffs. So
Yeah.
he's good, but I don't think he's gonna solve anything for Seattle. But cheap is probably right, which is important, I think, after they've blown away literally every first round for like 7 decades or something, and to get
I k- I kept
some
waiting for the
safety
like yeah, I
that
kept
can.
waiting for the like um Indianapolis Colts trade a fourth round pick for Jamal Adams. I'm give it up to John Schneider for not making himself look like an idiot by doing something like that. But um yeah, boy, it's
Yeah, that.
I tell you don't want Drew Lock. I'll just say that much.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've seen him play, and it's not great either. So
hmm Yeah.
I mean, it might make sense to trade Metcalf at this point. You're not, if you don't want to spend what he's probably asking, like literally hundreds of millions of dollars on him when you don't have a quarterback. So if you
I
can get
mean,
an insane trade offer considering all the other stuff that's been thrown around, then why not?
yeah, like if you can get two firsts for him, there's very rarely a scenario in which you trade a player for two firsts and wind up regretting it. Um, with that said, I don't know if your position is let's let's tear this thing down and get because we're not going to compete. Like, what's the point? Which I think you would be doing with DK. Um, it it really does feel like um, you could get value for Tyler Lockett first. Like
Yeah, that's
um,
true.
ship Chris Carson out for a third round pick. I'm sure someone would give a third round pick for Chris. Well, maybe not. He's a running back, but you know,
An injury
y-
prone one too.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. I don't have high hopes, but af when you didn't have high hopes 10 years ago, that's when you get a spectacular draft and end up with a Hall of Fame quarterback, a Hall of Fame linebacker, and
that's right.
a Hall of Fame safety who then went crazy and got out of the Hall of Fame talk. So,
What a I sometimes that just occurs. Well, actually, no, not sometimes. When I play Madden and I start a franchise mode, I like, I'm cruising the free agent section, and it's like, oh yeah, there's Earl Thomas. Oh yeah, Earl Thomas is only like 32 years old.
yeah.
Wow, what a truly spectacular fall.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the reasons why I wanted to get on here and have a podcast is the rookie draft is coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's always around this time of year where the two of us usually start chatting about, maybe we should do Dynasty, and
Mm,
really trying to push for it this year. Maybe find some people in our league, maybe outside of it, but I think we've talked about it enough that we need to just get together, spend 7 hours doing a startup draft, and then have at her.
yeah, I this appeals to my. I mean, obviously, if you have interacted with me as a fantasy football manager in any capacity, like the shit I live for is trading and like managing um managing assets and all that dumb stuff. So obviously a dynasty league has always held some appeal to me. Um you do need like, you know, a, a solid group of managers, and it feels like we've got that here. We've got the makings of a pretty stable league. So if we can persuade people to set aside a Saturday and go through it, I think it would be fantastic. Yeah.
And I think one of the misconceptions that people think about Dynasty is that, like, oh well, I play redraft, and I spend all week looking at waiver wires, sending my lineup in Dynasty. There isn't so much of that during the regular season. Like obviously, you want to make trades if you can, but with Dynasty, you have such a large roster that the waiver wire is like literally empty.
Yes.
So your week to week is actually a lot less work, and things only become busy when it's like, okay, my team's legit. Maybe I trade away some younger talent to try to win that championship and so on. But so it's a different mentality and workload, as I guess. When you play Dynasty, it's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
more off season stuff.
right. It's almost the inverted of a redraft where, you know, the the thing they say on fantasy footballers and so forth is like you don't win at the draft. You win by making savvy pickups and making and playing the matchups and so forth. And obviously there's skill to being a dynasty manager on a week to week basis, but certainly the importance and like the amount of influence you can have on your ability to win is the the slider is moved all the way over from week to week all the way over to off season, which does make it like a nice counterweight if you have a redraft and a um, if you have a redraft league and a dynasty league, then they they fit into each other very well.
Yeah.
Especially because in redraft, you're not very rarely are you finding yourself getting excited or interested in rookies. So this particular time of year um, is much more interesting for a dynasty owner than it is for a redraft owner. Um, and so, yeah, like I said, if you think about them as you know pieces that if you think about a 12-month calendar and how interested you are in your fantasy football league as a thing,
Mhm.
as a chart over the months, they kind of fit into each other nicely.
Yeah, I was actually going to make the same point about rookies. Like I've never done a rookie draft, and I always like get that itch to do one because it seems interesting, and also in Dynasty, like typical style is to do a linear draft, which is something I don't know if we've ever done, at least not since like 2010. So
Hmm.
there's actually a benefit to, well, it's not so bad being last place because you get a pretty big advantage having the first pick in every round, and so you can actually make off-season moves and stuff like that to try to really power up your team. Whereas in our regular redraft, we're making ludicrous, silly trades where we just trade like 100 picks between each other just so we move up like half a round.
Hmm.
Whereas
Hmm.
like your 102 pick is like a huge deal, right? You can make like two or three other picks off that if you trade it to a certain owner. So it's
Yeah.
a lot more investment on the draft side of things, which I think a lot of people have like enjoy, but probably just a little bit intimidated about starting it because that startup draft, oh boy, that can that can take a long time.
A a nice thing about redraft leagues is that if you are someone who, maybe you're only a little bit interested in fantasy football, maybe you're just doing it as something for fun and you're not super duper into it. A nice thing about redraft leagues is that um, you get an out. There's a natural out at the end of every year, and you're not really, letting anyone down if you say, "Oh, that was fun, but I'm out this year." Whereas with a dynasty, it can be a little bit intimidating, I think, for people because
Mhm.
you're drafting a rookie and you're drafting a rookie because you think he's going to be good in 3 years, and that means that you think you're going to be around to start him in 3 years. So I think people are a little bit turned off by the notion of like, hey, instead of a instead of a 1 year, like instead of signing a rental agreement with a 1 year lease, you're signing off for like a 3, 4, 5 year lease that needs to be re-upped. Like you need to give 2 years warning if you want out of it, type of thing. I don't think it is that way. I think that one you can easily bow out of a league, and uh, if you are in a league with the type of people who would be upset about that, then you should change leagues in general. But
Mhm.
our league now is in a fairly stable place. I can't remember the last time we had a change of managers, but certainly over the last 5 years, it's only been at most two. So uh, I think the time is right. I think people should heed our call and sign up for our dynasty league, and then we can dedicate a Saturday to doing a draft, and it would be rad.
Well, even like you don't even have to have a single day draft either. If you're doing a startup, like I've heard people do, like each team is on the clock for a couple days or something, and you take your time to draft a startup that way, which is certainly possible if people don't want to spend a whole weekend or whatever
Yeah, it's only
doing a
April.
whole draft. It is April. We got time. We have
We got
to,
time. Yeah.
got at least 3 months. Although
Hmm.
the thing is, you also have to do a rookie draft, so
Hmm.
you have to squeeze that in there. So if you postpone it too long, then it gets a little hectic. So I
This
guess
is
one of
true. Although if you do leave it too long, then you can just throw the kitchen sink at it and do a 1 day draft. And
that's true. Yeah, I guess how would you want to do the draft and then have a rookie draft? Like typically the rookie draft is the worst team is first. How would you want to determine that? Just totally random?
I think so. I mean, it's not a I think doing it totally random the would be the smart thing to do, just because other systems. I mean, I guess you could tie it to something, right? Like you could do something fun, like um, you could do a NHL playoffs bracket, and everyone does an NHL playoffs bracket, and whoever's bracket is the best gets to pick first overall. You could do something fun like that.
Yeah.
Um, But as far as tying it to past performance in the regular league or something like that, I don't think I'd be too interested in that, just because it's a totally
Mm.
different thing. And um, you know, yeah, it's entirely on its own.
Yeah, and then we'd have to do a similar thing for the redraft order as well. Well, that one would be snake, so it's a little bit more even, but you
Right.
know, a startup draft, the first overall pick is still pretty good because you're probably taking that Josh Allen or Justin Herbert or something like that. Patrick Mahomes, right? It's a pretty big advantage to start off with.
Oh, you there?
Yeah, I, I was talking about quarterbacks.
Yeah, that it's a pretty big advantage to start out with, and then it uh,
Yeah,
seemed to cut out.
if you were first in a startup, right? And I think there's some clear like best players to take at the start in a startup draft where so the first
Did,
few picks is a little bit of an advantage that maybe also needs to be, I guess, a random or something fun, I guess.
did you know that Patrick Mahomes is still only 26 years old?
No, that seems, yeah, I guess it kind of feels right. For some reason, I thought you'd be like, no, he's only 24, but yeah, 26. That's believable.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I don't
it's
know.
unbelievable how much he's won, and he's only 26, but
Right. Yes.
26 sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't Justin Herbert like 22? Like, isn't he just ludicrously young?
Yes, but listen, here's the thing. And I'm gonna have my hot take here, and everyone's just gonna say like, "Oh, you're just saying that because you're a Broncos fan and they're the Chargers and blah blah." And also, there's like leftover feelings from Philip Rivers, and you're probably just superimposing those onto Justin Herbert, who's a totally different guy. I get it. I hear all that. But here's the thing. I think people have been very quick to anoint Justin Herbert as like the greatest, the next great player in the NFL. And he's been in the league 2 years. He's made
That's
some
2
very
years.
he's he's been in the he's made some very, very, very impressive looking throws. He's clearly like physically like he's talented as all get out. I'm just not like people are like I hear people talk about best quarterbacks in the league, and they're like, well, 1, 2, 3, you've got Mahomes, Rodgers, Herbert, and then you go down to the next tier. Um, I'm not there yet, you know? I feel like maybe I don't know. I
Well, I'd say, like, it is early. He's been in the league for 2 years. But I guess coming from the other side, it's like he hasn't been bad. He's been exceptional as well for 2 years. So, I can kinda understand people being ready to give him that crown, but you're right, it is early. Um, but he's certainly shown nothing but pretty exceptional talent for being, uh, I think a lot of people thought he was not gonna be very good coming out of the draft, so
oh, you know, speaking of reasons why I might have a prejudice against them. Heading into that draft, I was fully ready for the Broncos to draft him. There were already people who were like, boy, wouldn't it just be the fucking most John Elway ass thing to draft a 6'6" dude with a cannon with a rocket launcher strapped to his arm who doesn't know how to make throws. Like pencil, like write it in pen. The Broncos are going to draft Justin Herbert. Um, didn't happen, but like that informed how I was reading coverage heading into that draft. Um, it's not like I think he's bad. It's just that, like I said, he I don't know if he's the tippy top tier. Well, let me ask you this, Reg. So let's pretend that the good our good our good friends and allies and colleagues in our fantasy football league hear our pleas and they agree to do the right thing and sign up um, for a dynasty league this upcoming season. And you're on the clock. Mahomes is off the board, and you need a quarterback. Are you taking Allen or are you taking Herbert? Or are you taking Murray or Lamar? It's probably between Allen and Herbert. So which one are you
it
taking?
it it definitely would be between those 2.
Yeah.
I don't like Lamar. So, I
Wow.
mean,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if it's just like I don't know. I think he irks me in a way for some reason. But
Interesting.
and Kyler Murray, I don't really like it that what he did to the Cardinals, even though they're a divisional rival. But the whole classic deleting all your social media to get a contract is dumb, especially when he's still under contract. So
It is. Sorry. Hold on a second, Reg. Hold on. And back. So you don't like Lamar or Kyler.
or Kyler, yeah.
Kyler, I understand. I have an affinity for Lamar Jackson. Um,
I think you get that way when you draft a guy.
it certainly helps. Oh my God. I'm looking at this fantasy football calculator dynasty quarterback rankings. Number 1, Josh Allen. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. Number 3, Justin Herbert. Number 4, Kyler Murray. Number 5, Joe Burrow. Number 6, Lamar Jackson. Number 7, Dak Prescott. Number 8, Trey Lance.
Ugh.
Guess who number 9 is?
Deshaun Watson.
Kenny Pickett.
What? Who?
He's in the draft. He's not even the first over, he's not even the highest projected quarterback in the upcoming draft.
That's crazy.
Like, he's one of them, but
I mean, I mostly agree with the order that you read off. I mean, to
oh,
answer your
sure.
your question,
Mhm.
like you'd have to take Josh Allen before Herbert. Like
Yes.
I feel like Josh Allen is the ceiling that Justin Herbert could be. like
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes.
So sure, you might get a few more years out of it, but I mean, Josh Allen is probably not gonna get worse for a while now that he's figured out his mechanics properly.
Right.
There is certainly a world where Justin Herbert is like unreal, but I feel like hitting Josh Allen is a pretty good bar to hit. So I don't know why you'd risk not hitting that to save
Ooh,
3 years or whatever.
but Justin Herbert could be anything. It could even be a Josh Allen. Then take Josh Allen. We'll take a
Exactly.
Justin Herbert.
I mean, if you really think age is a big deal, then sure. Or if you somehow don't like the Bills, which I can understand, like the Chargers do seem like a team that's gonna be good for a while now. Um,
I
and
mean, yeah, but
so who
also
knows?
the Chargers, like in terms of weapons that our guy gets to rely on going forward, like Eckler's not necessarily like he's 26, which he's got more gas in the tank for sure, but it's not a long-term thing.
Hmm.
Mike Williams, yeah, great. Um, Josh Allen has a guy says here, Stephon Diggs, pretty good, I think.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Just signing a big contract too,
He sure did sign just a huge contract.
which
Um,
actually lowers his cap hit, which is funny. So good for the Bills, I guess.
mhm.
I'd like to see them do well,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I don't have a horse uh, in the AFC East. So yeah, go Josh Allen. Sure, why not?
Buffalo deserves some glory
It's
after
true.
their 4 straight years of torture.
No kidding. You are not kidding at all.
Yeah. So what else? I know some people do like weird contracts in Dynasty where you like do some off, not something that most sites support, but you can do like, signing guys on contracts and stuff like that. It seems like a neat thing, but probably unneeded to really get into it.
I think so as well. Um, yeah, I feel like contracts are like IDP to me, where it's like it's not that it's not that I'm looking at it and have any particular problem. It's that I just kind of uh, it's not for me.
Hmm. Yeah, it gets a little bit too much into like fantasy, um, not fantasy, football manager, the game or whatever, where, the point of the game is to be a GM and not play the game. And
Mm,
so,
hmm.
if you really liked bookkeeping, that could be something fun. And there is part of me that does like that kind of idea of bookkeeping, but trying to think about like 30 plus contracts is a bit much. And so,
Yeah, a lot is what I would say.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other weird rules at all that like you don't think about, but you know, probably mimic the scoring that we have in our regular keeper league, and I think it's just the roster size would be some number I don't actually know, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on how many people we would get
Hmm.
on board, right? Like, because a part of how you do, or a part of what determines um your roster build is how many people you can get to sign up. But um yeah, I think sticking to vanilla and sticking to our league and having parity in terms of scoring would be pretty great.
Yeah, and I think 8 would be the minimum, I think, for the number of teams. Um, Obviously 10 is probably the right number.
Mm.
12 if for some reason more people we know like Dynasty than regular.
True. Yeah, it would be nice. Somehow I can't imagine that we will, but
Yeah.
um, so yeah, if you are hearing us now, let's do Dynasty, man. Be a lot of
Hmm.
fun.
I will definitely make a clickbaity title so they get trapped into listening first and then get suckered into
One,
listening to Dynasty Talk.
one, one trick to win your fantasy league.
Right. How to get the trophy.
Yeah,
Where's Keith at? Hey, I wonder if he's got it in his plate. I sent it to him last week in the mail, so hopefully he has gotten it by now. It's
yeah.
not too
I
far
think
away.
you should have him on and just let him talk about how rad the trophy is.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then
just
the week after week or not and then the episode after that, we can do a draft recap, like an actual like a NFL draft recap.
yeah, that's gonna yeah, that's
I mean
two weeks, two weeks.
unless we have a dynasty draft to go and summarize. That would be the ideal outcome.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the downside is I'm probably not getting a new trophy, at least not for a couple of years if we're once we're locked into Dynasty, I suppose. Consider it.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think having two trophies making their way around the country a thing you necessarily want.
Yeah. And hopefully Jaren's listening to this and he can figure out how you get that sweet ass metal case to me. Cause he talked about it 6 months ago and I keep thinking about it. Now that the Stanley Cup playoffs are on the way, I'm
Yeah.
gonna see that image of them coming out with the briefcase or whatever and be
Yeah,
like, that could be me.
if you send Reg the the metal case, I am ready now to commit that Reg will purchase white gloves.
Oh yeah. I may or may not already have white gloves.
Excellent.
I just need to carry a nice handkerchief and some buffer wax or
Mm,
something.
that's right. That's right.
Cool. Well, it's been fun chatting about football. I feel like, once the season ends, people just kind of move on from it for a while. So it's been good to chat about it.
Yeah, I would love. I don't know if you've heard. My team traded for a new quarterback called. His name is uh, Wilson Russell or something like that. Anyways,
Mm.
we had to give up our first round draft pick in order to get him. So I'm slightly less engaged uh, in the pre-draft media consumption.
Yeah, I thought
With that,
this Wilson guy was like a chef or something. Like, what's the idea
that's
there?
what I keep hearing. Yeah,
Hmm.
like Steph Curry, something like that. But yeah, so it would be nice to have another in on it. But certainly, I've got the Athletic Football Show's top wide receivers of the 2022 NFL Draft episode queued up next on my podcast feed. So we're getting to that point. Going to
Yeah,
be
I mean,
exciting.
I'm I'm guessing the next time we do an episode, it'll be like you said, post the NFL draft and see if anything interesting happened there. Hopefully, some nice big trades that we can all get excited about.
Yeah, presumably the Seahawks will have traded for Lamar Jackson.
Right? That's the way it's gonna go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'll catch you later.
All right, have a good one. And sign up for Dynasty, dweebs.
Dynasty. Do it.